Hello, you are listening to Deeply Curious. My name is Cody Jensen, and joining me is my beautiful wife, Sarah.
Hello.
In this episode, we want to tackle pretension, hipsterism, being cool,
Judgment,
yeah,
irony, sarcasm,
amen.
hate.
Before we jump into today's episode, I just want to let you know that this podcast is brought to you by the Jensen AV Club. It is produced by Christian B. Schmidt with associate producers Greg and Christy Jensen, and with additional support from all of the staff and crew members of the Jensen AV Club. If you don't know what the Jensen AV Club is, it is our Patreon page. It is where you can get exclusive content, deeper access to us, but at the end of the day, it is how this show is possible.
Yes.
For people just like you, helping to contribute financially to allow us to continue to do this.
Keep it going.
So if you want to check out the Jensen AV Club, you can do that by going to jensenav.club. There's different tiers you can check out and different levels of support, different levels of access. Again, that's jensenav.club.
Yes.
So, jumping into today's topic. I wanted to talk about this pretension because I feel like I've gone through a journey in my life. I am now 30 years old, and in my 20s, even before, but we'll just say in the last decade, from my early 20s especially, I would say I was a very pretentious person. I looked down on things and people that I didn't think met my standard of excellence.
Yeah.
And my standard of excellence, involved everything from photography and design and creativity, but then also just technology and I don't know, paint
Just
color,
just like a way of life.
Right. I mean, everything, and I still love good design.
Well, yeah, we'll talk about, because I think the point is it's not getting rid of standards. Like that's not the point of learning how to not be pretentious.
But so I used to be I would say very pretentious.
Yeah.
Probably. I mean, that's why I would view my past self, is definitely just being a jerk.
Yeah, you were very opinionated and you weren't afraid to say the opinion out loud.
Right. And I wasn't fully capable of letting other people enjoy things.
Right.
That I thought were less than excellent.
Yeah.
And through my journey of becoming an emotionally healthy adult, in my journey of trying to become more like Jesus, and just in my journey of trying to find enlightenment and trying to just be a better person, I have come to now very much loathe pretension.
You hard swing way to the other side. Now you're mean about pretentious people.
Yes, I'm pretentious against pretentiousness. I don't know. It's just one of the attitudes that gets me the most. It affects me, as far as bothers me the most, is people being pretentious and trying to be above it all. And it's just an interesting thing for me to think about, just one, the wild change I've gone through in the last 10 years, for the better, I would hope. But then also I just wanted to discuss why I feel so strongly against that.
Well, I think, to start the whole conversation, I think just I have come to, because I do have strong opinions as well. I keep them to myself, always have, but I do have opinions about certain things. But I think mostly I've learned that like enthusiasm is way more fun.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like the older you get, you know, you're going like in young 20s, you want to be like cool and accepted and, you know, whatever. And for some reason, we think the way to do that is to like congregate around our mutual hate of something.
Mm-hmm.
Also, it's easy to,
Right.
it really is easy to relate to somebody. Like, oh, you hate this too. Oh my gosh, we're the same. You know, like
building community around hate is
it's
really
much easier. Yeah. But I think like anything that is hard is worth doing, right? And so it's a lot harder to find people who are enthusiastic about something and like congregate around that. And so I just think like enthusiasm is way more fun, and just kind of like, I guess, stay in your lane and like what you like.
Mm-hmm.
And don't worry about everybody else. It's not about losing your standards or like, I mean, you are a designer and a creative and whatever. So like you have good taste. It's not about lowering your taste. It's just about not, I think, throwing that taste in other people's faces.
Mm-hmm.
and not bringing someone else down so that you can feel better.
Right.
You know? I just think enthusiasm is way cooler.
Yeah. And it's also, I think, it's scary, I think, is why. Like,
yeah,
people,
I mean, there's a vulnerability to it, I think, probably.
Yeah, there's a vulnerability to being enthusiastic. Like,
Yes.
there's this, I don't know if it's new. Like, this may be something that has been around
I think it probably has.
ever. But it seems to me, it appears to me that, like, there's this thing that young people, you know, hipster type people, but mostly just young people in general, like, try to hide their unbridled emotions behind this wall of irony, of hatred, of like, and not hatred as in like a discriminatory sense, but just like hating Starbucks, let's say.
Right.
Like, it's now, it is the cool thing to do.
Right.
To
dislike
to dislike Starbucks. Like, if you want to be in the cool crowd, then you need to not like Starbucks.
Right.
You need to, I've noticed recently, you need to not like those rentable scooters, like the Limes and things like that. Like, you need to be against that. You need to be, you know, all these things you need to be against in order to be like in the cool crowd.
Right.
And, you know, we talked about this in a previous podcast when we were talking about 1975 and how Matty Healy was talking in the song about
irony.
Yeah, I'm talking about irony.
Yeah. And
how we hide behind irony. And I didn't really, in that conversation, understand what he fully meant by hiding behind irony, because we had that, you know, we talked about that, like how I don't really get it. I get it now.
Yeah.
Like, because I've been able to put more words and more examples to it. And the fact that it's just people are just building walls to protect themselves from saying or showing emotion.
Yeah, because when you think about it, showing true emotion means like you are bringing down a wall of some sort. And so like if you're showing true emotion, another person has the right to accept or reject that. And if they reject that, then they're rejecting you, like the most true form of yourself in that moment, right? So irony, sarcasm, you know, those kinds of things that like we hide behind, they're not rejecting you, like if they disagree, because you've turned off your emotions. So it just is much easier to do that, I think. And I don't think it's anything new, because I just read Letters to a Young Poet this week. It's a book of 10 letters on like life and advice and whatever. And in one of the letters, he talked about irony. It was written in like 1902 or 1903. And he talked about getting rid of irony and like not using irony as a crutch and, you know, in your writing and things like that. And I mean, that was in Germany or somewhere in the 1900s. So
Yeah.
I don't think it's anything new. I think it's just probably maybe more apparent in our culture now because of the social internet or something. But I do think it's felt very strongly, like you know, the judgment, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, like, to bring back the example of Starbucks, because I think this is
it's an easy example.
It's an easy example, and also it applies directly to me. So basically it's like, why do you care what I enjoy?
Right.
Because it doesn't affect you at all, like literally at all. Like
right.
it has no effect on you what I enjoy.
Right.
And so whenever we say like that, you know, we went to Starbucks and people are like, why are you going to Starbucks? Like there's so much better like places around or whatever.
Right.
And it's like, well, I've gone to those places. I've tried the drink that I like to drink and I don't like it there.
Yeah.
So I go back to Starbucks because I like the way it tastes there.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that what I get there is this like artisan crafted
fancy
drink that like, you know, you can taste the notes of Huckleberry Finn. Like it's the fact that I drink it and say, that's good. And whenever I drink the other one that is at this like highly crafted, you know, place that, you know, has the vibes that everybody wants. And I'd go sip. I don't know.
Yeah.
I like what I drink at Starbucks better.
Yeah.
Like then if that makes me uncool, I don't care.
Right.
Like I like what I like. It affects you none. So if I flip that and view other things that I have those opinions on of like,
well, see,
how do you like that? It's like, okay, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It literally affects me none.
Right. Most people don't know how to flip the script. Right. Like most people feel like, why do you care what I do? Like everybody has those reactions. Like I don't care what you think. Like I'm going to do what I want to do. Right. But it's really hard for us to be like, oh yeah, what I think doesn't matter to them, you know?
Right.
Like we're all very much in our own heads and we think the way that we live is the right way to live. And it's very hard for people to flip the script. I also think like a good example is, I think girls get it a lot. I think girls get the brunt of all of that kind of cynicism because it's not guys drinking Starbucks that are frowned upon. It's girls drinking the pumpkin spice lattes, you know, the basic girls, the ones who are like, I mean, it's just very, very evident in culture. Like anything that girls are enthusiastic about is called basic.
Right.
And, you know, like that, who cares? Girls literally rule the world. Like it's true. Like anything that like teenage girls are into is going to be a popular thing.
Right. And drives the economy.
It drives the economy. The bands that make it are because of young girls. Like it's just how it is. So enthusiasm pays off.
Right. That reminds me of like another form of pretentiousness, I guess, of the whole thing about things becoming too popular. Yeah. And how you like a band, you continue liking a band, but then too many other people like a band. Right. So you're like, I mean, I used to like them, but they're too mainstream now. Yeah. It's like, why do you give a flying flip? Like, you listen to it, you like it. Like, it goes into your ears and you like what you hear. That should be all that matters. But for some reason, we feel like we have to take things that are too popular, right, and hold them at a distance of like, well, I liked their early stuff, but now, you know, it's a little mainstream, or it's a little, you know, whatever. Whenever you could just let yourself feel and be like, I love their music. Yeah, I think there's just something really like threatening about truly enjoying things, like on a personal level. Like I think there's something in ourselves that's like, if I have too much fun, you know what I mean? I don't know, there's something that's like
keeps us from doing that. And for a long time, I was that way. Like I said, I have my opinions mostly on like books and art, but like I have my opinions and I think other people are wrong, you know, but I think I just learned really quickly that like I never want to be the reason someone feels bad about what they like. You know what I mean? Like I never want to be the reason someone feels self-conscious or something, because I know what that feels like. Like that's happened to me. And you know, I just think there's nothing worse really than being enthusiastic about something and have someone shoot you down because of it.
Right.
And I just learned that I do not want to be that person. So I just keep my mouth shut. Like if somebody loves something, let them love it. Like it doesn't matter what you think. And it's not about, like I said, lowering your standards. It's just about not forcing your standards on somebody else. You know, I think like, I mean, obviously music and movies is a really good example, because I used to be very, very opinionated about like what, and I still am, about like what I consider art to be, you know, but at the same time, I've figured out that all art is subjective and all art has a place. Like there is a place for bubblegum pop music, even though we did a podcast on what makes a pop song. And when we, what was it, like 2 years ago or something. And I talked in that podcast about how much I hate pop music. And then maybe like 4 months later, I realized that like I like when a song makes me happy.
Yeah.
You know, like there's something about a song that just like makes you like bob your head that is enjoyable. And why should I not enjoy that, you know? And I think like there's a place for music to make you feel things and also to make you smile.
Yeah.
That's just the truth. So like all art should be welcome. Like you should be willing to feel whatever that art is trying to make you feel, whether it's happy or sad or anything in between.
Right.
And I just never want to be the reason that somebody doesn't feel happy.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what I've learned.
I mean, it's hard in that realm of just like great art.
Yeah.
Not getting the recognition, the same level of recognition of
for sure
a piece of art that just makes you feel good. But
totally.
I think this might be somewhat of fighting that pretentiousness, like is natural, because it's like I think about the fact that the song Old Town Road just became the most streamed or downloaded or listened to, whatever it is, like the of
number
all time,
one Billboard
like,
for however many weeks,
like of all time, like, ever Old Town Road, like and that song makes people happy. It's very catchy. It has a great groove, like it gets stuck in your head. It's
smart marketing,
earworm like crazy. But is it like Bon Iver level art? No.
Not to me.
Yeah, like I guess to me, no. Like I think there is much higher level of art.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's hard to be like, well, why doesn't like real deep, like meaningful art get the same recognition? But then again, it's like, but it doesn't matter.
I agree. I have a hard time, and I've talked to you about this a lot with like certain mediums of art and what succeeds and what doesn't, and it's really hard to accept sometimes. But I also think if you just change your perspective, like what I've done in like music specifically, is just like with Old Town Road or whatever, is just like, well, all anybody is looking for is something to ease the pain for a minute, you know, like we're living in a very difficult time, you know, like there's no denying that.
I mean, just the human existence.
Is difficult, and the couple of years that we've had, and you know, like I saw this, like the whole country pretty much has PTSD about all of the shootings that are happening, and like everyone's just on edge. And I think there's nothing wrong with allowing somebody a minute of happiness, even though maybe that means that it becomes the number one song ever, and I don't think it maybe deserves that spot. sounds a little harsh, but I don't mean to be harsh, but you know, like maybe it doesn't deserve that spot, but
right.
You know, who am I to say that somebody doesn't deserve to enjoy streaming Old Town Road?
Right.
No, I'm nobody, you know? And like, I just think there is a place for everything. And I think that you can educate people on, you know, what, like for you specifically, you have very high standards of taste and excellence and whatever. And it's not about diminishing those, but it's about learning, I think, how to educate people who don't have great taste. It's about teaching rather than shaming.
Yeah.
I don't know how you do that exactly, except for just having open conversations about like why you think this art is on a different level or something. But I do think there's a way to like live your truth or whatever you want to say and like speak it out loud without shaming other people.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I would used to fall into that camp that you just said of like educating people, but I feel even
I don't
now,
mean educating in like, I mean literally just like when you're having a conversation.
But I just like, I even have a hard time with that now, just on like a philosophical thought experiment of just if even I should like educate people on taste. Like I can like what I like and I can share what I like.
That's
but
what
to
I mean.
But to tell other people that like something and be like, oh yeah, that's really cool. Well, let me tell you why this thing is really cool as well and maybe even better. Like, you know, that type of thing.
I mean just sharing what you like and why you like it. And I think that's what I mean by educating. Yeah. I don't mean like, oh, let me tell you why you're wrong in a nice way. That's not what I mean.
I mean, a prime example that is glaring at me in the face is my large apple tattoo that I got whenever I was 20 years old. And that time and the years following, I was very pretentious about people who used PCs. Like I could not accept that you would use a PC, and I would tell you about it, and I would tell you all the reasons why you're wrong, why everything that why a Mac is better, and why you should get one. I'll go to the store with you right now. We can pick one out. Like there was no room for anything other than what I considered to be the most excellent piece of technology. And then by the time I was probably 26-ish, like I had come down from that, and like I had transitioned into a time that I'm still in now of just like, it doesn't affect me. Do whatever you want to do. Like if you use a PC, like how does that affect me at all? Like it doesn't. You use the piece of technology that allows you to do the work that you want to do. Right. The end.
I also think I do think there is like superior tastes. Like there are levels of taste and like what is more I don't know, like what's more excellent in design and things like that. But I also think it and probably this is true because pretension is self-centeredness in a way, but I think it's so very selfish or self-centered to say like my taste is better than your taste. Like how much higher do you view yourself from other people to say like you have worse taste than I do? Like and who says that your taste is the best? Right. You know what I mean? Like
it's the best like to you.
It's all subjective, I think, maybe. Like I do think there are certain levels of taste that are just clearly better than others, right? But like at the same time, who are you to say that your taste is better? Right. That you'd have to view yourself very highly in order to. And
yeah. It does I think come down to humbleness. Like
maybe
in that as well.
Yeah, maybe. Cuz it's also like there are so many people who I know have better taste than I do in fashion, let's say, like who like high-end fashion. They have way better taste than I do, and I know that. But I look at some of the stuff they wear and I don't like it. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, who's to say that my taste is better than theirs or theirs is better than mine? It's just different.
Right.
I don't know.
I mean, because that's the same thing, like back to the coffee. It's like, well, the people who, I think some people dog on like Starbucks and everything just for the sake of trying to be cool.
Yeah.
But then there are some people that have developed a literal better taste for coffee,
and I believe that's
coffee type
true.
drinks than I do. And so whenever they taste certain things, they're like, my elevated taste says this is good. Versus me, who I don't even like coffee. I don't think any of it's good.
Right.
So I don't even have a taste, let alone elevated taste.
Yeah.
And same thing with like wine. It's like the fruitiest like rosé that's sparkling
with all the sugar.
It's like that to me. I'm like, I take a sip and I'm like, that's good. But I take, a sip of this, like, I don't even know
dark
wine
red,
terms.
something.
And, it's like some $850 bottle thing. And I'm take a drink and I'm like, oh gosh, that's disgusting.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's hard whenever I think about all the different facets of what I'm talking about. Because somebody who has elevated palate within their coffee, wine tasting, it's like, yeah, they do have a better taste than me. Or is it better? Like, is it a better taste, or is it just they have developed a taste for wine, for
I would
coffee?
say maybe it's
like,
not
and
better.
I've developed a taste for design,
right?
Not an elevated taste. But at the same time, it is elevated because
I would say elevated, not better. And I think you can make a distinction between the two.
Yeah. And maybe there is a hierarchy of everything, and there is better and there is worse. But the whole point of this conversation is it doesn't matter if somebody else likes something that's worse than what you like.
Right. Or what you deem worse.
Yes.
Because some things aren't actually worse.
Yeah.
Some things are just different.
It's just like, I guess for me, I don't want to be defined by the things that I don't like,
right?
By the things that I hate, or by the things that I find I don't want to be defined by negativity,
right?
I want to be known and defined by the things that I love. I don't want people, like, whenever I enter into conversations about like who we are, or what's that person, what's Cody like, or whatever, like, well, I mean, he hates Starbucks, he hates like this, he doesn't like this, and you're like, oh cool, I got a good picture of who he is. Like, I don't want any of that to be a part of like my bio. Like, I want my bio and my representation of who I am to be defined by who and what I love.
Yeah.
Not who and what I loathe.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's just so much more fun to be happy. Like, and it's so much easier to be happy when you're not worried about how everyone else is wrong, And I think there's, I saw this thing, maybe it was a video or something. I mean, like 10 years ago, a long time ago. And it was this girl who was saying, like, it's okay not to like something, just don't judge people for it, know? And I think that's exactly it. Like, it's okay not to like whatever you don't want to like, but you don't have to judge other people for liking it. You know? And there's this quote that I read of, which I think I've mentioned it on the podcast before, but this mom her son was watching a ballet or whatever. And when it was over on TV, she asked what he thought of it. And he said, it's very beautiful, but I don't like it. And I think, like, that's just, it is possible to have both of those opinions. Like, you can understand why somebody else likes something and still not like it yourself. And you can just like let people like what they like and understand that it's not for you, and vice versa. Like, it's not, I don't know. It just seems like a lot simpler and a lot more enjoyable way to live.
Yeah.
I think.
This is a little bit unrelated, but something you said in there sparked in my brain. It was a story or a clip or something. Anyways, somebody was making fun of the way another person laughed.
Yeah.
And the other person was like, said, oh yeah, just make fun of them for the way that they show the most joy that a human can feel. Like, because whenever you laugh, like that is a physical like manifestation of your unbridled
right,
joy.
like you cannot contain it.
And so like you laugh.
Yeah.
And it was like just pointing out the fact that when we make fun of other people's laughs, we're making fun of the way that they feel the most joy. And some people's laughs are just super funny, but
right, it doesn't change the
doesn't
fact.
change it, but it's just like made me think about like that is true. Like that's funny how we sometimes we will criticize like the way others feel joy.
Exactly.
And that goes right into what we're talking about. So I guess like my next question is why is it so hard for people in general? Like why is it so hard for us to truly let ourselves be enthusiastic and enjoy and feel versus how easy it is to like hide behind walls of irony and pretentiousness and
because I think
sarcasm.
It's much easier to say in irony, LOL, I'm depressed, than to look at someone and say, I'm depressed. You know, like you can make jokes about how terrible you feel, but it's still a joke, right? But like it's much harder to just like be real. I think it gives us a security blanket, and that way, if somebody does reject or whatever you want to say in some form or fashion, we're still protected. Like the innermost part of us is still protected on some level. Whereas if you have no blanket, if you have no wall, and they, you know, say something hurtful or whatever, like there's no protection there. Like you feel the brunt of that instead of like the wall of irony, I think. Yeah,
and that is in the opposite emotion of what I'm asking. Like I guess it's easier. It's easier for me to see like if I'm feeling bad, then it is easier to like bring sarcasm or irony like into the conversation of like I'm depressed like type thing. But like
okay,
I guess more so, why is it harder for us to be like I love Harry Potter, like
right,
and just like go all out and say like I love it?
Because so like if you let's take like a stupid rom-com or whatever, something that like is polarizing to some people who would not call it real art, right? So like if your favorite movie is Twilight, that's a good example because I dislike Twilight. If your favorite movie is Twilight and you're going on, you're like, oh my gosh, I love Twilight. I loved the third movie, whatever. And you're like going on about how much you like it. And then I just spit out like, oh my gosh, this is the dumbest movie I've ever seen.
Right.
What you actually heard was that you are dumb for liking Twilight.
Right.
Right.
And you're like,
so,
I
know it's not blah, blah, blah. And then you backtrack
right.
and you make up for
right.
the vulnerability of enthusiasm that you just showed.
Enthusiasm.
Yeah, I said it weird, but it's like, you know what I mean? Like there's no protection there still. It's just like,
yeah. I mean,
it's raw emotion, regardless of if
right.
it's positive or negative.
True.
I think that's it. So it's much, much easier to hide behind a wall of something. And I think it also, I think part of one of the side effects of that is that you don't love things as much.
Yeah. You don't let yourself.
You don't let yourself love things. And that's a terrible way to live.
Right. I mean, we are on this earth and we have the ability to feel.
Yeah.
And love and like have these moments of sheer like, I don't know, euphoria with whenever we discover things that we love. You know, whether that's like a amazing book, movie, piece of art, or nature, or architecture. You know, like all these things, like we all have our different things that like whenever we encounter it, it is the meaning of life and brings like, basically for me, it's a piece of heaven. Like it is like God, like in the moment of those like things. And I guess it's just so vulnerable to share that. Be like with what you're saying, because of, I guess the reason pretentiousness is the reason we hide behind pretentiousness.
Yes, we're all just protecting ourselves.
Like
instead of like truly accepting whatever and whoever and everything, we're just all like protecting ourselves from the same thing that we do.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't want to ironically like things.
Yeah.
Like
Also,
I almost think like Old Town Road. I think there's two facets to that. The reason that it became the most listened to song, whatever the thing is because so many people listen to it, quote unquote, ironically. And it's not even that we listen to it ironically. It's that we actually like it and we mask it with irony of like,
right.
Like a lot of these
that's
super,
what a
super
meme is, right? So
right. It's like a lot of these super popular, things that have happened over the years where it becomes a cultural phenomenon, like Old Town Road, like the Carly Rae Jepsen song.
Oh yeah, Call Me Maybe.
Call Me Maybe, like that just exploded, and a lot of it exploded through the lens of irony of like, we're doing this thing because we all know it's bad, and it's like, but we still love it.
Funny,
it's funny or whatever. Instead of just being like, I love it, the end.
Right.
So I was just thinking that like, I wonder if the Old Town Road like becoming that huge hit has some to do with like the state of like the rampant state of like irony in our culture of like,
I mean, probably. I wouldn't doubt it.
I don't know.
I mean, that's exactly what a meme is though. Right. And things that become cultural phenomenons are memes now. Like that's just like how it happens. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So
the other thing with this whole attitude of like, of the sarcasm, the irony, the pretentiousness, like that whole thing of just, that's what it takes to be cool. Like that's what cool people do. That's what the hipsters are like. That's what the people who, are the in crowd, the cool crowd, like
right,
are those that, participate in that attitude. And it's led, basically, I just don't want to be cool if that's what it takes.
Right.
Like I don't want to be a cynic. I don't want to be, I am naturally already a more like cynical and critical person. I have to fight against that. And because I think that is what I want to do, because I feel better. I feel like, what's the point in wasting my life away being cynical about things whenever I can be optimistic and just enjoy and feel, the feelings of happiness. Like why try to hide that? And so it's like, if that's what it takes, I don't want to be cool. And then also we were listening to a podcast with John Green on it, and he said something that I absolutely loved, was that to be cool is to be a form of cold. And I don't want to be a cold person. Like I want to be a warm and inviting person. I want to be a person that people are drawn to by my warmth, not drawn to because I put on this air of mystery and coldness. And so I think just in this whole conversation of just like the pursuit of cool, it is the opposite of what I believe I want my life values to be.
Yeah. In
that I want to be love and humble and open and, just all the things. Like basically, if you put my Christian glasses on and look at it, just the the ways of Jesus, the fruits of the Spirit, the like all of those things, everything that I'm pursuing in becoming like Christ is the opposite of what it takes to fit in with the cool crowd.
Yeah. Well, it's like on that podcast, John Green also said, you know, to be the opposite of cool, you run the risk of becoming a sentimentalist and becoming maybe like all the cliches, you know, like
he said a cheesy version of yourself.
A cheesy version of yourself. Yeah. But if that's the cost, then it's worth it. Like if the cost of not being pretentious is that I become a bit cheesy, what is that the end of the world? Is it the end of the world to like feel feelings of everything deeply, right? Is it the end of the world to like let people live their life and like not criticize them for it? No. It's the opposite probably. It makes your life better by not judging other people. Yeah, it just does.
Great example. I went skiing with my family. Like, I don't know, half dozen times, like growing up, every few winters we would go. And because I thought like the cool thing to do would be to snowboard.
Yeah.
And so I snowboard like the first, I don't know, 4-ish, 5 times, whatever it was, I would snowboard. And we only went for like 3 days every couple years. So like you spend most of your time learning, like, again, like how to do all this stuff. And then you have like maybe, and you're sore and you have like a day to play or whatever. And so I want to be cool, and the cool thing to do is to snowboard. So I snowboarded. And then like the next time we went, I snowboarded the first day, and then I decided maybe I should try skiing, and just to see what it's like. And I switched to skis, and I absolutely loved it because I just had way more fun. Like I just had so much more fun skiing than I did snowboarding. And my 2 parts of the story. One, I could have been having fun way more years prior to that if I wasn't trying to just,
be cool.
Do the cool thing to do and just, skied. Secondly, since I switched to skiing instead of snowboarding, whenever I tell people that, I get an air of pretension back, barring that, to other like snowboarders or people that have done that, like they give this air of like pretension of like snowboarding is better than skiing. Like, why would you do that? Like, how could you have more fun? Like skiing, it's like, well, I put the skis on and then I had more fun. That's how, like, Yeah. And so it's just like keeping yourself from, full enjoyment, and then, obviously bringing other people down for enjoying things that you deem less than.
Yeah. It's just really not, I just think like, if you just think about like how you really do affect other people's lives, like if you're friends with someone, you're going to affect them in some way. Like if you're having a conversation with a person, that's going to affect them. And like, do you really want to bring them down for something that they love?
Right.
And I don't think anybody who is a nice person would say yes. We don't want to, like and so it's just, I don't know. I keep that in mind whenever I'm talking to someone who maybe has different opinions and tastes than I do.
Yeah.
Especially with books, like, doesn't matter what I think about the book. Doesn't matter. They like it. I'm going to let them like it, you know? I just don't want to ever be the person who makes somebody feel worse.
Yeah, and I think in that situation, like, there's nothing wrong with having a discussion about a book that you didn't like. No, I don't think
so either. That's what I'm talking about, like educating them.
Like, they didn't like, or you didn't like it, they really liked it, and, like, talking about, okay, tell me about the things that you liked. Like, what, like, and tell, like, what did you love about it? Like, oh, interesting. I didn't really see it that way. Like, whenever I read it, like, I felt like this whenever I was reading that. It's interesting to hear you say the opposite. Like, and so that is just a conversation. Yeah,
but what I'm more talking about is people who call like 50 Shades of Grey literature.
Yeah, you just have to
LOL. Like, cool.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not here to like
Yeah.
bring anyone down, but I don't have to agree either.
Within this conversation, one other thing that I was thinking about is putting on my like Christian worldview through this, of thinking about being cool, in the pursuit of being cool, meaning to be cool, have to bring on an air of sarcasm and irony, and be pretentious about certain things, and to like, you have to like certain things because that's what the cool kids are doing. And within the context of a Christian community who hopefully are, trying to pursue the qualities of Jesus and become more like Jesus, meaning become more loving and more humble and more giving, and et cetera, et cetera. And that reminded me of this kind of cultural wave that made its rounds in the last couple months of the Preachers in Sneakers Instagram account. So if you don't know, in a few months ago, there was an Instagram account that popped up called Preachers in Sneakers, and it was essentially started as a joke by a guy who was joking around with his friends about all of these young hipster preachers who were wearing
very expensive,
thousands of dollars on the resale market shoes and Gucci shirts and just all this stuff.
All that stuff.
Same thing has been going on forever. Preachers back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, all wearing like these $1,000+ suits. Just like that type of thing. But now it's moved into streetwear, and so just started this Instagram account of these hipster pastors on stage wearing off-white, etc., and then they would put the like resale market value of the item next to it, just as a social commentary of what is happening. I don't want to get into the full thing because we could easily talk for a long time about all of it, but I think that within that is the pursuit of cool. It is trying to be cool. It is trying to put on an air of cool. And maybe it is the fact that they are cool. Right. And that is their
Again, people, taste. There are levels of taste.
And, whatever that taste level. But for me, and within this, it's like, I do not see how, if you are on the path to humbleness, I do not see how the path to humbleness leads you into a Gucci store.
I mean, this is kind of where you and I disagree, though. We've had that conversation. I think that it's very possible. I think that it can be difficult to decipher. I think that people can lie to themselves just to make themselves feel better. But I also believe that it's possible.
I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying that it is.
I think for certain personalities, it's not possible. Probably. Yeah. But I think for some, it is possible. And so,
yeah.
Who are you to know, really?
In this, I guess I want to put a caveat here that I hope that this doesn't come across as like criticizing or being critical of these people, because I don't know any of these people personally. This is just like more so a social commentary on consumerism plaguing the church, more so than like throwing shade at certain pastors.
Right. And I think you can definitely talk about that. Like, who was it? Propaganda said something about like, if we can't handle these questions, then we're not really ready to talk about the question of whether we really should be living in a capitalistic society. Right. And like, I think, that's true.
Right. And so basically the reason I bring this up, so I don't want to go down that tangent, because the reason I bring up the whole thing is because talking about the cool, like trying to be cool, being part of the cool, like that whole thing, the thing that we're plagued by, everybody is, for me, in this realm of like putting on literally clothing that gives you this air of cool and like all of that comes with it, it within this, now this is, I'm not talking about people outside the church. This is specifically inside the church, especially in positions of leadership. For me, it gets down to the fact that you are preaching with your mouth a inclusive gospel message that all are welcome, while externally, physically, you are giving the message of exclusivity, an exclusive cool kid club. It's like a group of exclusive cool kids saying, hey, check out this inclusive cool Jesus that, loves everybody, but I'm giving you an air of exclusivity that you are at arm's length to me because I am a part of this cool kid club.
But are they only giving off that air because the brands give off that vibe? Like only a certain amount of people can buy Gucci, or can afford Gucci, right?
Right.
And so like, are you only getting that vibe because the brand sells that or because a person sells that? Because that's also a different conversation.
Well, the brands, they sell exclusivity. That's the whole thing with high-end fashion and
right.
high-end streetwear. Streetwear has taken the same path as high-end fashion. They're merging.
Yeah.
And so it's all the same boat now. And within that, they sell exclusivity. They sell that not everybody can have this.
Right.
And so that is what is being sold to all. And some people buy into that, and they buy into this scarcity mindset of that this thing is worth a certain amount of money, and it tells other people about me because of the exclusivity of it, and the type of people who are drawn to the exclusivity of it are the people in the cool kid crowd, the celebrity crowd, all of those people, because they are exclusively can obtain this thing, then others want to obtain the same thing to say, I'm in the same crowd as them. So it's this exclusive cool kid crowd that is outside of a Christian worldview. Who cares? Like that's just their prerogative. I'm not saying it's healthy for other people to do that. And if you want to get into a conversation just about consumerism in general, I would love to have that. But I'm talking more so specifically like within the gospel message, within the lens of Christianity. I do not see how they can coincide fully.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
And that's not to say like that it's wrong to ever wear streetwear or it's wrong to ever wear high-end fashion. Like just by saying that out loud means that one day I will wear it because that's just what happens. It is now on public record. So one day I'm going to have something,
have on Gucci,
have on Off-White or something. Somebody's going to get a picture of it and then be like, remember that time whenever you're on the podcast. But right now, I'm not saying you can never, like, I'm not saying that you can't, but I really don't. They seem to me to be opposing energies.
I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I also think it's way more complicated than a simple answer. And in fact, I think there probably isn't an answer. Yeah. Truthfully, I think that there's way too many deciding factors and you can't just put a blanket statement on a bunch of people. I think it all depends on an individual person. Mm-hmm. And that's not necessarily fair to be like, you deserve to wear this, you don't, right. Like that doesn't make any sense. And also kind of goes back to what we were saying about like, just let people do their thing.
Right.
I also think it's really hard. Again, there's not a simple answer, but I think also part of the exclusivity feeling, I think you have to take ownership of that. Like if you are feeling like you don't belong in a certain group, then like you have to take ownership of that and just believe that you belong there anyway until you decide I don't want to belong here. Do you know what I mean? Like, there have been so many people who I'm friends with who I didn't know thought I was too cool for them to hang out with for so long. They're like, I'm not cool enough to hang out with you, blah, blah, you know? So they like resisted friendship for so long. And it's like, it doesn't make any sense, you know? And so I think like part of that is insecurity. Part of that, I think you do have to take ownership of your own insecurity in that specific regard of inclusivity and exclusivity. Like, you never know if somebody is willing to include you until you try to be included, right? Like, there is a reciprocation that has to go on, I guess is what I'm saying. It's a give and take. Yeah. It's not all one-sided.
I think for me, it gets into like, which level are we talking about here? Because at the end of the day, unfortunately, perception is reality. And if the perceived attitude, perceived air of somebody on stage is different than just somebody who is a Christian wearing something,
I don't disagree,
or hanging out with somebody. Like, so there is a lot of nuance, and there's a lot of levels, and there's a lot of things that go on within that conversation. But there is something to be said about when you put on this attitude, whether that attitude is like literally putting on clothes that give off an attitude, or if you wearing those clothes gives you an actual attitude. You know, there's, I don't know. I'm not quite sure how to fully articulate like the all the different levels within a succinct amount of time, because I think there's different levels of leadership, different levels of perception, different levels of all sorts of things. But to get back to the core of this conversation is just, I want to be on a path of humbleness. I want to be on a path of love and a path of selflessness. And within that path, I do not see room for like being a cool kid or being critical and cynical and like all of those things that are wrapped up in like what a cool hipster person is. Like, I'm not saying that a cool person can't be humble, you know, or whatever. I'm just like, you really have to hold these two seemingly opposite things at the same time.
Yeah.
Which is part of being a Christ follower. I mean, you do have to hold two truths at the same time at all, like always, but
I think it's part of life too. Yeah. I think that I think life is holding seemingly opposite truths and learning how to live with it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just it. And I think that that's the problem with pretty much everything, is that it's two opposing truths.
Yeah. And so what I was actually saying is, for me, in my life, my personal life, not thinking about the world or other people as a whole, just for me, I want to pursue a life of humbleness and selflessness, and, you know, move towards being more like Jesus. And within that means I have to get rid of the cynicism and the criticalness that is more natural for me. And I think that ultimately it leads to being just a happier, more emotionally filled person.
Yeah. I mean, I think when you really think about it, nobody's like, yeah, I want to be cynical. Nobody logically thinks that, I don't think. They're not like sitting down, writing out their life values. Cynicism, you know, that's not how it works. But I think without paying attention, without intentionality, you become that. Because it's really easy to let the world get you down. It's really easy to let the world tell you what you should and should not think and do and feel and be. But it's worth the fight to not let the world do that, and to find your enthusiasm and let other people find their enthusiasm. And then at the end of the day, that's all that really matters.
Yep. Also, I just realized that I just transitioned into being old. Because old men, for all of eternity, reach a certain age where they stop trying to be cool.
Yeah.
And they wear sandals with white socks.
Yeah, you found it.
And
you did it.
I just realized that I have stumbled upon nothing new. I've just reached into the age where I no longer care what is cool. And
it's
I just
all downhill from here.
I'm going to... All right, well, I guess I should end this podcast so I can go buy a fishing pole and some golf clubs.
It's like Crocs.
Yeah.
Crocs are cool, though, again. So,
yeah, irony.
There you go.
They're in with the cool crowd because they are ironically cool.
Yep. There you go.
So anyways, thank you guys for listening to Deeply Curious. Hopefully that conversation sparked some thoughts to you, and you can continue pondering upon the pursuit of cool.
Yeah.
If you want to help support the show and get deeper access and exclusive content, you can check out our Patreon page by going to Jensen AV Club. And there are different tiers of involvement that you can do. Every single dollar makes a difference. And to all of our members, thank you so much. See you over on the Jensen AV Club, and we will see all of you next week.
Bye.